ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शंकरं लोकशंकरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ओम। There are 3 mundakas, means 3 chapters main, each having 2 chapters further. So now while introducing the 3rd mundaka, Acharya is introducing the 3rd mundaka by saying Paravidya ukta yayat daksharam purushakyam satyam adigamyate यदधिगमे हृदय ग्रंथ्यादि संसार कारणस्य आत्यंतिक विनाशस्यात् तद्दर्शन उपायश्च योगः धनुरादि उपादान कल्पनया उक्तः अथ इदानीं सहकारिणी सत्यादि साधनानि वक्तव्यानि तदर्थम् उत्तर आरम्भः। प्राधान्येन तत्व निर्धारणं च प्राकारान्तरेण क्रियते अत्यंत दुरवगाह्यत्वात् कृतमपि तत्र सूत्रभूतो मंत्रः परमार्थ वस्तु अवधारणार्थम उपन्यस्यते। What was taught so far was this very subject matter of this Upanishad, that is Paravidya. Vaya Paravidya yayat aksharam adigamyate, by which you come to know Akshara Brahma, about which the student had asked for. Kasminnu bhagavo vignate sarvamidam vignatam bhavati. Knowing which everything becomes known as though. So Paravidya was told in the second and the first Mundaka. The phalam of Paravidya also was told. Vidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drashte paravare. When one knows that Brahman, paravara Brahma, vidyate hridaya granthi. The knots of the heart means avidya comes to an end, and then also was told tat vignanena paripashyanti dhiraha anandarupam amrutam yad vibhati. They see that anandarupam, that amrutam, etc., was told, paravidya. So, agnanam, self-ignorance, is a cause of samsara. And some upama also was talked about. Dhanurgruhitva Upanishadam Mahastram. That the simile of a bow and arrow was talked about in the Yoga Shastra also. Now, the person who is not ready for the knowledge, please understand the nature of the knowledge. Nature of the knowledge is that knowledge is always immediate. When the pramana vyapara takes place, at that time and then knowledge takes place. It is not after some time and at some other place you come to know the self. No. That very same time and very same place, the knowledge takes place. Like even when you open your eyes are the means of pramana. It is an adequate or a proper means, and suppose it's an adequate means as well. Eyes don't have any other issues. Then the knowledge should take place at that very moment. You open the eyes and you see the things. That is why we are able to negotiate the traffic. Okay. If knowledge were to take place after some time, you will say like that joke, this fellow, there was a joke which I had, this is my addition to that joke, This fellow was driving a motorcycle and from a distance he saw two headlights. He thought that there are two motorcycles. So he wanted to make a stunt, let me go between them. And suddenly he went in the center and dashed. Obviously, it was a truck. So that was a joke, about our Rahul Gandhi. Now we don't have to say Sardar. We have to say Rahul Gandhi. Because he cuts lots of jokes. Some videos when you listen, you wonder what this person is talking about. Anyway, so this fellow was obviously in a hospital and they were waiting for him to regain the consciousness and all the bandages and all that. And the police was standing, relatives were standing, his wife was standing as besides. He looked around and asked a fundamental question. दो स्कूटर के बीच में without light वाला कम्बक कौन था? Who was that idiot without lights driving a scooter between these two scooters, two vehicles? So he dashed that in between, thinking that this was two motorcycles. Anyway. Coming back to it, would happen like this. Last time I saw that I had seen two headlights, two lights. That's all you remember. Traffic driving would not have been possible. So many activities could not be possible. Especially on the assembly line, people working fast when they have to register or deliver certain quantity of that finished product or whatever it is, on the basis of which the salary depends. So you cannot have those certain things unless the knowledge is immediate. This is the nature of the knowledge. Knowledge is always immediate and is always true to the object of knowledge. Okay. Now, in self-knowledge, the place where the knowledge has to take place, this being a peculiar knowledge, this being a self-knowledge, we'll explain what kind of peculiarity is here. This being a special knowledge, it requires certain preparation of mind also, where the knowledge is to take place. In other words, if you are not ready for the knowledge, then some upasanas are necessary, some meditations are necessary. So, Omkaro, Pranavo Dhanusharo Hyatma, Brahmatal Laksham Uchyate. You know that upasana also was given. They are called antaranga sadhana. They are called inner means, inner sadhana, which is necessary for some people. They may have necessary purity of the mind, but restlessness may be there, and there may be lack of subtlety, lack of sharpness to appreciate the Shastra. They need this kind of upasanas. Okay. Now, if someone is still not ready for this, the person is not adhikari, even for upasana, that person needs to be given bahiranga sadhana, external means. What does external sadhanas, bahiranga sadhana means? It means religious life. It means ethical life. It means life of bhakti and tapas and certain attitudes. All that is necessary. Okay? Please understand the difference between religious life and spiritual life. Spiritual life is primarily trying to understand the nature of the self, trying to understand Ishvara, and trying to appreciate the non-duality between Jiva and Ishvara, between me and Ishvara. Appreciate the mithyatvam of Jagat, and thereby oneness of Jagat with myself, with Ishvara. That means to see Advaitam, pursuit of seeing Advaita, or I would say pursuit of owning up Advaita, okay, is spirituality. Technically, in Sanskrit, the word is adhyatmikata. Atmanam adhikritya yad vartate tad adhyatma. So that is adhyatmic life. Prayers, japa, upasana, and then tapas, bhakti, duty-based life, certain attitudes, these are all religious life. You can say. In fact, they are bahiranga sadhanani, but it becomes a religious life only when you bring in Ishvara. And that Ishvara is there not as an accomplice for Arthakam. One, see, that is why I said certain attitude is necessary. Religious life involves certain attitudinal change. Only doing tapas, only doing some seva, or performing your duties, or living ethical life, no. That is not religious life. That is a grahastha life. But religious life is to perform all these with the awareness of Ishvara. You live in the awareness of Ishvara and perform all these activities. Do all this. That means tapas is also for Ishvara. My duty is also Ishvara. Ishvara prityarthe. Idam aham karomi. It is for Ishvara. And religious life also, in terms of puja and japa and tapa, There is also Ishvara for the sake of Ishvara, for gaining the grace of Ishvara, not Ishvara as an accomplice to Arthakama. Some people do pray. They go to temple seeking something, some redressal to pain, redressal to unpleasant situation, redressal to some social problems. Oh God, help me to get rid of this. Help me to have some more pleasures. Help me to have some more security. That is not in a way religious life. When we say Vedanta religious life, it means you just pray out of sheer love for Ishvara. That religious life is not spiritual life. We will see in this mantra, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya Samane Brukshe Pippalam Swadu Asti Tayor Ekam Swadu Atyan Anyo Nashnan Avichakashiti. We'll see that in that mantra. People doing some japatapa, people doing some upasana, they think that they are living a spiritual life. No. Understand, these are all the means to prepare you. You may have love for Ishvara. That's good. That's a good sign. I'm not denouncing it or criticizing it. You may like to do japa, you may like to do puja, you may like to do. Some people are so committed to different yajnas. They keep performing ashram, so many yajnas, Vedic chanting, they run pathshalas. I know so many swamis. They're really committed to Vedas. They're really committed to brahmacharis, those who study Veda, help them in all the way, etc. That's fine. But then one should know that is not the ultimate. Doing tirthayatras, etc. is not the ultimate. That is to prepare you for moksha. Moksha is owning up yourself. Unless you own up yourself, you cannot gain moksha. And owning up myself is knowing myself. I see who am I. And that is possible only through knowledge. That alone is moksha. So there is a 3-tier program. Or you can say Hindu way of life is 4-tier. One is just a samsari who performs duty, who lives an ethical life and does some tapas enjoined by Vedas. May not be doing all this in the awareness of Ishvara. When you perform all this in the awareness of Ishvara, then you are starting your spiritual life. The first step or the starting point of the spiritual life is you do tapas, you do puja, you do yatra, you do homa, you do duties, you do ethical life, you do bhakti, etc. Or do perform, adhere to all the do's and don'ts, but with the awareness of Ishvara. When that is done in the awareness of Ishvara, that is a beginning of spiritual life. That means that prepares the mind. It gains you antashuddhi. It gains you sadhana. It leads to sadhana chatushte sampatti. It leads to viveka and vairagya. It would lead to shraddha, which is something missing. Don't think shraddha means you just do some namaskara and study shastra. No. Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasa. Vakyadishu means whatever Guru says, I just surrender to him. Whether I like it or not, whether I justify it or not, whether I feel it proper or not, I take it as Ishvara's Ichha. Ishvara is manifesting through my Guru. Ishvara wishes this through my Guru's words, and then I commit. That is very difficult. Human ego, human intellect, and to some extent adamancy. I will not do unless I am convinced. That is lack of Shraddha. One may have love for the teacher. One may have some surrender for the teacher. But Shraddha is complete when I just follow it. do what is said. Therefore, Shastra says, Guru Vedanta Vakya Adishu Vishwasa Shraddha. Adi implies all these suggestions, all the advice by the teacher. And this is gained only through the grace of Ishvara. And to earn the grace of Ishvara, one has to live a religious life in the awareness of Ishvara. The phalam of religious life is, I earn the grace of Ishvara. And Ishvara Krupa is when one sees the Vairagya, one develops Viveka, that grows in Vivek, one sees that there is no connection between what I am doing and what I want. That's Viveka in Vairagya, growth of a Shraddha in oneself, Titiksha, etc., and Mokshecha. That is the grace. Ishvara's grace is not only in terms of gaining this or that, or removal of some pain and gaining some happiness, etc. That's not the only expression of Ishvara Krupa. Ishvara Krupa, ultimate expression or expresses as Vivek Vairagya, Shamadamadi, and Mokshecha. Mokshecha is being told in Shastra as Shubhecha. Shubham Bhavatu. The Shubham starts when you have Shubhecha. Shubhecha means Mokshecha. And that is manifestation of grace. It is grace personified in the form of a desire for moksha. It is a grace, grossified or manifested grace, which makes one feel when feels asking fundamental question about himself or his or her pursuits, one becomes introvertedness. Hey, what am I doing all this life? And what did I get? Is what exactly am I seeking in life? To discern this problem, or even this without any clarity, discernment of the problem, some discomfort, some sense of not at homeness with what I'm doing, some vicarious urge to seek something else, and thereby they withdraw from worldly pursuit. That Viveka is a grace. Withdrawal is a grace. One may not have logical conclusion or vairagya about the things, but fact that doesn't want all kinds of all these things, just wants to be with oneself and want to know something, feeling a sense or a feeling that something is missing in my life, something is lacking in my life, and that lack can be fulfilled only if I turn to some master, only if I turn to some sannyasi. That is the grace. The grace is you feel like doing this. And earning a grace, the process of earning a grace, this grace is the foundation for spiritual life. You can say beginning of spiritual life. Second step is gaining certain concentration. Second step is to gain certain focus and certain degree of subtlety in our own mind. That is the second step. And when one has that, then one is ready for moksha, and then the Shastra works. Shastra is a pramanam, but unless the mind is ready like this, the words will not speak to it. The knowledge is immediate, and here the phalam of knowledge is knowledge itself. Listen this. The result of knowledge is knowledge itself. And if knowledge is immediate, that means phalam is also immediate. How come? Generally, the phalam of the knowledge you gain after doing something. I learned cooking and I don't get cooked food unless I cook myself after doing something. Here, gnana devatu kaivalya. Knowledge alone is moksha. Why? Because the problem is out of ignorance. That I am bound, that sense. I am limited, that sense. I am incomplete, is out of ignorance. And knowledge removes the ignorance there and then. And once the ignorance is removed, the ignorance caused problem also is immediately stands. So, if one is ready, moksha is at the time of teaching itself, not somewhere else. Because you are mukta. Na baddho na mukta, na guruhu na shishya. Chidananda rupa shivoham shivo. That being a case, the grace, beginning or earning the grace, is the first step of spirituality. And if I am not ready for it, this I know, but that but will continue. Continuation of but means I need to work upon my mind. I need to look at my mind. I have to restructure my mind and attitudes and values and things like that. So you have to do upasana and you have to live a religious life. Religious life means tapas, committing to tapas, committing to my duty, laukika, vedika, etc. All kinds of duty. Committing to dharma, this is Vishesh dharma. And samanya dharma also, satyam vada means ethical life. And all these in the awareness of Ishvara. Without the awareness of Ishvara, all this is only samsaric life. It may not lead to antahkarana shuddhi. Shuddhi comes by grace. Grace has to be earned, and you can earn the grace only when you live in the awareness of Ishvara. Understand? This is a krama. This is a krama of sadhana. What is sadhana krama? Bahiranga sadhana. External means includes religious life, includes ethical life, includes certain attitudes and commitment to certain social, religious, cultural, national do's and don'ts in the awareness of Ishvara. That means karma yoga. You start with karma yoga. Gain certain focus, shuddhi. Try to work on certain focus of the mind. And then that grace manifest in terms of vivek, vairagya, shraddha, shavadamadhi, and moksha. Again, you need a grace. You may have that, but don't have a teacher, proper teacher. So many people have that, but they don't have a proper teacher. And having had a teacher, to have a time to study, and teachers should have time to teach, that is all the way grace. Okay. Now, to talk about this sahakari sadhana, that sahakari sadhana, moksha sahakari sadhana. The mukhya sadhana, the main means for moksha is knowledge, but satellite sadhanas or secondary means for gaining the knowledge is religious life and upasana. To talk about that, though it was talked in the past, even to tell that this chapter is begun. The tatha idanim tat sahakarini satyadi sadhanani bhaktavyani tadartham pradhanyena tattva nirdharanam cha prakarantarena kriyate. Also, the third Mundaka is to teach us about Paravidya only through different methods. through different methodology, you can different standpoint, different prakriyas. Why? It is, we have been talking the same thing. You talk the same thing in the first Mundaka. You said second Mundaka also the same subject matter. Third Mundaka also same. I don't know whether I shared this statement of Puja Swamiji with you or not. When we joined the course, the very beginning sentence, Swamiji, as usual, very humble and polite, welcoming. He said, I welcome you all. All of you had been very successful persons and will be successful. But then I'm going to teach you something about Purna on the first day. And what I'm going to teach, I shall teach on the last day also. Same thing. And in between also same. If it's the last day, I can understand the upakram, upasamhara. You begin and conclude. But all the way. But next sentence was very loaded. Even if I am going to tell the same thing, I promise you, each successive day of your stay during your stay over here will be more joyous, more happier than the previous. You know why? Because you come closer to yourself. You come closer to yourself. You come nearer to yourself. Exactly like fire. More near you go, you feel the warmth of the fire. You come closer, and the self that is Ananda, self that is Mukta, self that is Shanta, you become more relaxed. You become more happy. You become internally more free. You become more satisfied with yourself. You are content with yourself. This is the teaching. And therefore, teacher also here says he is going to talk about the same thing. Pradhanya, though I am going to talk about the secondary means in terms of religious and ethical life and certain attitude. I am going to talk about certain duties, but pradhanya, primarily, I am going to talk about tattva nidharanam cha. We are going to ascertain what is the truth. I am going to reveal the truth. I am going to ascertain the nature of Ishvara, nature of you, the Jiva, and nature of this Jagat. Jiv Jagat Ishvara says Swarupa Nirdhara. That is the primary topic. Why again? He says, Prakarantarana kriyate atyanta duravaghyatvat krutamapi. Even though it was done in the earlier sections, even though Swarup Nirdharanam, the nature of the self was revealed in the earlier chapters, the nature of Ishvara was revealed or talked about in the previous chapters, still here we need to take another way of, because why it is that duravagahyatvat? It's the subject matter is very, very difficult to comprehend. The subject matter is very, very subtle to comprehend. And the subject matter being what it is, and my habitual errors being what it is, it's very difficult to own up this vision for all the time. Means 24/7. I own it up, this vision. That's little difficult, fairly difficult, not little. And since it is very difficult to comprehend, atyanta durvagahyatvat krutamapi prakarantarena tattva nidharanam api. Even though this tattva nidharanam was done earlier, but we shall do it again from the different standpoint. Okay, this is the introduction that Shankaracharya gave about this mantra. And then he says, it is so difficult, subtle to comprehend. Therefore, teacher gives the simile about two birds. Please understand why it is difficult to comprehend. Look at this. I find this myself as experiencer knower. Human life is primarily cognitive life. You keep on knowing one or other thing all the way. And as per knowledge, you decide. As per knowledge, you have desires. As per knowledge, you act. That's how the human life is. Pradhanyena buddhi pradhana manusya. Primarily, you are more dominant. You live dominantly based on your intellect. And the subject matter is such, it's very difficult for intellect to comprehend. Why it is difficult to comprehend? Listen this. I am an experiencer. I am a knower. And the world is known. The world is experienced. There is a subject and there is an object. There is a knower and there is a known. And when we hear these statements, that is another thing when you grow up in Indian culture. Everything is Ishvara. Whenever you look at it, whatever you see is Ishvara. They say this, Jagat jaja najar mari thare tya tya yadi bhari aapne, etc., etc. I see you everywhere. What is experienced, what is known is Brahman. That's true. But the knower is also Brahman. That's a unique teaching here. Why is it? It's very difficult. I, the one who knows, the knower, and the world that is known, they should be different. Subject and object should be different. Then the knower and the known should be different. If they are one, how can you know? You don't test your tongue. You don't see your eyes unless you have a mirror in front of you. But even though eyes see everything, you don't see the eyes. So the subject matter is very peculiar. The knower and known, both are Brahman. So you require a different methodology of teaching. You require a lot of repetition to teach. Okay? In the last mantra, 11th mantra, we said, we saw what? Adashordvam cha prasrutam brahmai vedam. Down and above. What is spreaded above? It is Brahman only. Brahmaiva and Amrutam Urastad in the front, Paschatad in the back, Dakshinatascha in the left, and Uttarenacha on the right. Everywhere it is Brahman. It is not different. Nothing is away from it. Nothing is separate from it. And that is a complete knowledge. So, subject matter is very, very peculiar. The knowledge is very, very unique. And that to gain this unique knowledge, you need repetition. It is very subtle. And to gain this unique knowledge, you need to see it from different angles, different ways of looking at it. And that is what is being done here, talked about in the Shruti. Okay? Now look, listen this. This is also, if it is not understood properly, it is confusing mantra. So many people are confused about this mantra, and their interpretation is all further confusing to the students. That the teacher himself is confused, and the student obviously will be more confused. Not simply confused, it will be more confused by the teacher. What is this problem? Look at that. Unless and until one discovers this fact, one owns up this fact. I am that Brahma, which is everything. And nothing is separate from me. And I am nothing. Then discovery takes place, unless unless you own up that knower, the jiva, is everything, you cannot dismiss or disown the existence of jiva. Okay? That it is a jiva who asks, how can everything is Brahman? That means that individual fellow is there. The individuality, the sense of being separate, is a cause of samsara. That is jiva. Unless and until you own up this vision of non-duality, you cannot dismiss, you cannot disown, you cannot negate the existence of this jivatma. Okay? This jivatma experiencer keeps on experiencing the phalam of his or her punya papa of previous life and lives, whatever it may be, you don't know. That jiva is experiencing, and that jiva will continue to be samsara unless the cause of jiva, namely ignorance, is removed. So this jivatma is accepted and a simile is given, okay, about two birds perching on the same tree. Please understand, though two things are talked, jiva and Ishvara, or jiva and Brahma, dva suparna sayuja sakhaya samane vruksham abhishakashiti tayor ekaha swadvatti anyo anashnan abhichakashiti. It is said two, but there are not two. There is not jiva is separated from Brahman. Like that Big Bang took place in Brahman. Like Big Bang took place in Mars. And that's how the sun and the earth and the moon and all this came out. Similarly, Big Bang took place in Brahman. No, that's not the case. Okay? Nothing has taken place. And the Brahman and the Jivatma are not separated. People tell this, Gujarati one. Jiva Bhagavan thi vikhuta padi gyo. Jiva is separated from Brahman. That means Jiva becomes real. And if Jivatvam is real, you cannot get united with the Ishvara. Even after unification, that so-called real jiva will continue. Unification would be only apparent, but like joining two political parties. This is joining that. If jiva were real, he cannot merge with Brahman. Okay? He cannot be one with Brahman. He will remain separate. So, there is no becoming if jiva knows itself to be Brahman. If it knows itself to be Brahman, or Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma, discovers that I am not separate from Ishvara, and thereby nothing is away from me. Sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani chat. So he sees this fact, and that is Jiva Ishvara Aikya. The jivatvam, the individuality is only and only because of ignorance. The avidya karya kruta bheda. Avidya causes this division, and avidya being mithya, the division is also mithya. Okay? A beautiful imagery of two birds is given One symbolizing Jiva and another symbolizing Atma or Brahman. And he says, Samane Vrukshe. They are there in a same tree sitting. And one keeps on going out and finding food and it keeps on eating the food. Another one is just a witness. Tayoranyan avichakashiti. He just watches it out. That means there are two birds the birds who are perched on a tree of samsara. Birds are on the tree. Here the tree is like samsara. And this body also is a tree. You can say this body is a tree on which they are there. One keeps on eating the fruits. Which fruits? Swadvat. Delicious fruit, not necessary. Every time you don't get sweet fruits, you end up getting bitter fruit also. And that bitterness can start at any time, This fellow, this is the way of beginning of bitterness, This fellow was get married, and after that formality, they both came out and holding the hands and were going. And she started telling him, I don't understand the way you said I do. You should have done it properly. They take a vow, Do you take this lady as a wife unto death and blah, blah, something they have. And he said, poor fellow just said, I do, sir, or something he said. You should have told confidently and loudly. You were too polite. And you almost murmured. I also did not hear, but I thought you said so. Therefore, I got married. I took it to be a marriage thing. This is how it begins. The samsara begins from there. This is the beginning of Jivatma. Swaduvati. He started eating the fruits of samsara. All the time, fruits are not sweet. Sometimes they are bitter. And whenever there are bitter fruits, Jiva looks for some more fruits in the bitter to have some sweeter fruits. Okay, that is how it goes. The other one, the Jiva, the Bhokta, this is a Bhokta. Swaduvati means Bhokta. Bhokta means the one who is enjoyer. That means one who is Karta. Karta, Bhokta is same. Jiva, definition of Jiva is Karta, Bhokta, Jivaha. He enjoys and then he does. That's a Jivatma. Okay. Now, this Jivatma has another word. That what is that? Watching bird. Sakshi. Vichakashiti. It is just standing there. It is just watching this fellow as to what this fellow is doing. And this Jivatma keeps coming back to this watching bird. What does it mean? The other one is Satta Spurti Pradata. Other one gives him the very sentiency and all capacity to do things is possible because of the other one. Okay? The so-called other one is not really separate. Other one is the thing. Is superimposed on the other one. So there are not really two things. Please understand. There are not two birds. That Upama is being given here, and the tree is typical samsara tree. The Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashwattham Prahuravyam. The tree has roots, has a root, which is root, main root is Urdhva. Urdhva means Utkrushta. Urdhva means subtle. Urdhva means which is beyond these names and form. That means that which cannot be seen. Yattad dresham agrahyam chakshuchotra varnam avarnam etc. That is the root. But this root, samsara tree, has adventitious roots, secondary roots like people tree, banyan tree, so many roots. You don't know where it started, and it has become stronger and stronger and stronger. That has to be cut asunder. That cutting first step is asanga shastrena dradena chitva. Tatah padam tat parimargita. Urdu mulamadha shakam ashwattham prahuravyam. Shandamsi yasya parnani yastam vedasa vedavita. 15th chapter, 2nd sloka. Adhasyordvam prasudatasya shakhaha. Adhasya mulanyanu santatani. Karma adhasya mulanyanu santatani. Karma anubandhini manushya loke. Third shloka. Narupamasya tathobalabhyate. Nanto na chadir na sampratishta. Ashwatthamenam suvirudhamulam. Masanga Shastra. Suvida Mula, but then there's a Masanga Shastra. It is not Masanga Shastra. Suviruda Mulam, Asanga Shastra. Chitva. By detachment is cutting. But when you cut the root, the adventitious roots give rise to another roots and it continues. So the original root, the main root is to be removed. And that root is avidya. And that goes back knowledge. And to gain the knowledge, all this process is being talked about. Okay? We'll see the mantra, I think, at next class. Start it now. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. We'll see you on 12th English class next week. Hope you all saw that link and those different dense